Ender Flicker here, back with another video. Don't mind my brother in the background, he's currently playing something with his friends. Anyway, today is big for my channel. Well, not big, more like medium information about my channel. I'm going to be doing a mixture of content. Not like gaming and all that, except I'm going to be doing child-friendly content and mature content. The reason why I say that is because there's a bunch of stuff I like doing on this channel, but I can't do it because it's considered child-friendly.
Oh,
like
my God, I forgot.
Gaming videos, vlogs, not vlogs, gaming videos and that kind of stuff. So, if you want that, be sure to hit that like button down below and smash that subscribe button and hit that little bell icon down below to become a part of the Phoenix Squad. And yeah. Anyway, let's get into today's video. Today we are reviewing the... It's not a tutorial, trust me, it's just one of those showcase videos. It's not modded, it's 100% vanilla. So let's get into it.
Now I have selected 3 of the top comments on my channel and combined them all into one in an attempt.
Shout out to this guy, he makes some insane videos. I'm talking mega builds.
To create an evil, industrial-style fantasy nether base. I've just about found the perfect place to start building, so give that like button some love and let's get down to business. Now this base has the potential to be the perfect nether cave. All it needs is some terraforming and we should be good to go. So at this point we need to fix things up a bit and make sure we have a nice template to work with, as well as throw in some basic cave decoration. Now it did take several hours to get this done, but eventually the cave was starting to look a lot less messy. Although the time-lapse was short-lived, you guys can see just how much of an effort I made into trying to make this work. Now this is where things start to get a bit more interesting. So the first thing we need to build is the nether gate entrance. A lot of people really wanted to see what it would look like to enter the overworld portal, so I guess you can consider this a 2-in-1 video. Now the idea for this project was definitely a long shot, as my main goal was to achieve something fantasy, industrial, evil, possibly steampunk, but in my own style, complete with all those gears, fans, turbines, putting together a sort of factory style nether base. I know it's kind of crazy, but let's just wait and see what I can put together, because at the end of the day I've never built anything like this before. Well guys, things are really starting to shape up now, putting together this awesome looking crimson style portal. I really love the shades of red and purple, just makes it seem a lot more evil, and they just seem to match. Apart from that, I'm gonna step up the game and throw in as much detail as possible. I've built a gate, added some gears on either side to make it seem like it can be opened and closed, and just like the overworld portal, I'm gonna try my very best to blend this portal into the surrounding terrain. Right guys, so far so good, making a significant amount of progress, from flowing lava pipes, industrial style towers, gears and all sorts, making this project slowly come to life. But what I really love the most is just the vibrant red, purple and orange colors that make the build fit nicely into the nether style background. Well guys, I tell you what, this is definitely quite a view, and there's a lot of space still available within this cave, so let's just see how far I can take this project. Right now this bridge could definitely use an upgrade, creating some simple archways and filling each individual pillar with some lava to light them up. I'm also planning on adding a few more industrial style features, one of which is this simple but nifty conveyor belt, which is conveniently transporting goods across the factory. Now I've also included some mine tracks right across the bridge, as well as adding some red stained glass to the lava to give it a bit more of a fiery effect. Now the most challenging part of this project though is definitely going to be the main headquarters. the center factory, which is really going to make this build stand out. Sticking to the same industrial fantasy style look, I'll be adding giant cranes, lava pipes, gears and towers, as well as 2 main entrances using double doors and cobblestone wall for handles. While I was in the middle of building the factory, I thought it would be a great idea to also add some extraction fans across the ceiling. Finishing up with a bit of detail, a touch of red, and we're pretty much good to go, at least having something extra across the cave ceiling. With all these towers producing thick black smoke, plus the heat contained within this cave, obviously wouldn't be realistically workable, so adding those massive extraction fans would be a great help. Now, apart from adding several additional features, my main goal right now is to finish the main factory building. I have to say this is by far the biggest project I've ever undertaken in a single video. Tons of hours of work finally coming together. Right now I'm joining everything up using various different features. Once again, from cooling fans, towers, and yet again another conveyor belt, but this time using a hook and iron bars. Right guys, it is time to finish touching up on the main building. I could go on this building rampage forever, but I think I've had you guys waiting long enough for today's video. People say I set my goals way too low, so I'm going to go absolutely crazy today and set today's goal at 15,000 likes. And I think that it's ridiculously high, but let's just see how it goes. And finally, the world will also be available for those of you who supported the channel through my website, and it will also be included in the USB drive. So I think
I'm gonna do 2 reviews, mainly because this video was kind of short.
you guys know what time it is, so let's roll the cinematic.
So come then, you heroes. Come in all your power and glory. For in the final hour, all must serve the one true king.
Well, it looks like all I have to say is a big thank you for watching, and I will...
That's the end of the video, just that, and it goes to the end card. Okay, let me just go to his channel real quick to show you his channel page. Like I said, he does a ton of different videos. Which one? I know. The Desert Temple These. I want to show you some stuff.
Yo guys, what is up? My name is Duracroft, and once again, welcome back to another Minecraft video. Today we are going to attempt building the most epic and most monumental...
Subscribe to my channel and page. The link is going to be in the iCard. Up there. I always get that wrong. Up there, in the top right hand corner.
Desert temple ever. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, because we are in for another creative journey. Right guys, now let's first off give ourselves plenty of space to work with. A simple transformation, but we're nowhere near done yet. In order to make the landscape a lot more interesting, I'm going to start with the creation of a gigantic crater. The pyramid will be situated at the far end, starting with a simple guideline, constantly manipulating the size and shape of the pyramid as well as the landscape. It was incredibly time consuming, but eventually I found a great starting point for this epic project. Now, right in the center of the crater, I've created a separate sandstone pillar. I've also made the pyramid even bigger, and the reason for this was simply to create a series of connecting bridges, which will in turn lead to the entrance of this colossal pyramid. Now it's time to finish off that oasis I mentioned at the start of the video, decorating the crater with grass, trees, rivers and waterfalls. Now I've also used light blue stained glass to create a variation of color, as well as placing a few vines across the crater walls as an extra added feature. The oasis definitely adds a nice upgrade to this once so desolate place, and with that completed, we can now move on to the most important phase.
Let me make something clear about these videos that he's making. I know I said it before, but this is not modded at all. Wanna know how he's making those waterfalls? Light, well, blue, different shades of blue stained glass.
Now a pyramid as grand as this one definitely requires an impressive entrance, constructed using tall towers and a huge archway to grant you access into the structure. Most certainly a lot of decoration and detailing, as well as sticking to most of the colors used by the original desert temple. I've also included an extra feature on top of the towers, building giant flame pots using colored glass. Decorating the pyramid was surprisingly one of the most challenging parts of this video. Now, trying to stick to a fantasy style setting, I had to go through a lot of experimenting before I actually got this to work. One of the really cool features I added was the creation of a separate floating pyramid which just hovers above the temple. I've also created 4 smaller fire pots on each corner of the structure, as well as finalizing some extra details. From above, you guys can just see how much effort has gone into this already, with the
He is right, that does look like a terracotta.
pyramid almost looking like a giant terracotta block. The height of this pyramid actually stands at just under 150 blocks. The standard default temple just surpasses 10 blocks in height, making this monumental structure 15 times larger than its original predecessor. Right guys, now brace yourself, because this is where things go just absolutely insane. Now I thought there was something missing, so I decided to transform the landscape even further. Yes, I got so carried away I actually built giant floating islands around the valley, each of them held down by solid black chains. All that's left to do now is upgrade the floating islands with grass, trees and ponds. We can also have a few waterfalls just cascading down into the crater below. Now here's one idea we've incorporated in a previous video and can definitely be included into this project. What we're going to do is start by constructing 4 separate gemstone towers, well decorated and detailed, with one very important feature. This feature, of course, is the red magma core we have hovering above the tower. And with all the towers completed, we can now connect the magma gemstones to the top of this mighty pyramid.
I know it looks like it's modded, but it is not modded.
This is by far more than I could have ever thought possible. Hours and hours of work finally coming together. There's only one last thing left to do before we can finally finish off this project. And so, with the creation of a mighty throne chair fit for a king, I proudly present to you my most challenging, most epic desert pyramid ever.
Welcome to my world. You have crossed into the world of the dead in search of answers. Arise and accept my gift. And remember this, mortal. Fail me and it shall be your undoing. Gaze now upon the lands below us. Harness your rage and focus. I allow you to pick your allegiance, but in the end, you will be mine, one way or another.
Well guys, as you may know, this world is available on www.jettercraft.net. No, seriously, buy my merch, please. I have no job. Without you, I'd be homeless.
With all jokes aside, thank you very much for watching today's video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.
This video is a perfect example. 8 minutes.
Yo guys, what is up? My name is Jirocraft, and thank you very much for joining us today as we have just hit 300,000 subscribers.
He's actually at 1 million, so this is one of his older videos, but good job on him. I'm just trying to reach 300.
Thank you guys so much. To celebrate today, we are going to be adventuring into the deep ocean using my creativity to build and rediscover the lost city of Atlantis. This request was incredibly challenging, traveling far into the distant ocean for one of the most demanding projects I have ever undertaken. Building underwater would seem almost impossible, as if poor visibility wasn't bad enough, we also have to worry about restricted movement, not to mention the fact that certain blocks are not even compatible with water. I therefore had no option but to build an entire ocean using my own creative knowledge. So sit back, relax and enjoy as we venture into this all new underwater paradise. Now this may not seem like much now, but we are going to do everything it takes to make sure this new landscape looks and feels like you're swimming through an underwater lost city. First and foremost, we need to construct an ocean surface, and for that we need a slight bit of help from World Painter. After a ton of experimenting, I eventually created an artificial ocean using nothing but blue stained glass. With the help of World Edit, we can now transfer this ocean surface into our newly built landscape. This already makes a significant change to the entire project, but believe it or not, there's still 2 weeks worth of work yet to be built. I did unfortunately turn off connected textures due to the excessive amount of blue stained glass. Right guys, now this is where most of the magic starts to happen, transforming the landscape even further to try and closely resemble the formation of coral reef. We're also going to be using the Minecraft block Mycelium, which at least gives off a bubble effect, but despite this, I just generally like its tone of purple. I later began experimenting with different types of coral reef and seaweed, decorating this underwater paradise in a venture that took me almost 24 hours to complete. This is definitely one of the most colourful projects I've ever built, and experimenting with the underwater theme was definitely worth a shot. Right guys, now this is definitely starting to look a lot more fitting, but there's one more feature that's really going to help improve on the overall look. With the use of white stained glass, adding bubbles to the surrounding landscape was definitely essential. Our goal of course is to make this world feel as aquatic as possible, and this worked out way better than I ever expected. And so it begins, the construction of the mighty epic city of Atlantis. Soon you guys will understand just how carried away I get when it comes to building a mega project like this one. It all started out with a simple idea of constructing the ruins of Atlantis. That soon drastically changed into building an entire fantasy, Greek mythology based project, experimenting with all sorts of statues, towers, buildings, which soon even expanded further across the ocean floor. After setting aside the idea of building just the ruins of Atlantis, I instantly set myself up for an overload of hard work, and soon found myself constructing an entire underwater fantasy-based city, even expanding on the coral reef surrounding the buildings. So after several hours, I eventually finished off the outer city, with the idea of trying to fill up as much of the empty space as possible. Using a combination of quartz blocks, pressed marine, sea lanterns and red stained clay, I decorated the city as best as I could, building everything from walkways, towers, bridges and houses, not to mention seahorse dragon-like statues, which were incredibly challenging to put together. And finally, with the outer city complete, there's only one last objective waiting to be achieved. Right guys, so the next objective is to build within the inner city walls. My plan was never to construct the outer city in the first place, so my decision is now to build a structure that would immensely stand out from the rest of the project. The idea is to create a monumental fortress-like palace right in the center of the original coral reef. This one structure, believe it or not, covers an area of over 5 million blocks, and in the history of my YouTube career is by far the largest single structure I have ever constructed. The really cool thing about this palace is that every single segment is decorated with its own unique patterns and designs, varying in sizes, shapes and connecting to different sections of the fortress. Right guys, even after adding all the final details, I was still left with another tough decision. A huge flat surface right in the center of the palace. Despite being able to simply build another tower or a circular dome, I decided to undertake yet again another challenging yet adventurous project.
Before you guys find out what he was gonna do, what he's gonna do in this video, I would want to tell you what I would do in that scenario. Use that area either as a garden space or a gladiatorial arena, like Rome or something like that. So, yeah.
After much thought, my final decision was to attempt building a Titan godlike statue holding a planet right over his shoulders. This was the most complex of the entire Atlantis building project by far. This mighty statue took almost an entire day of work, but after a few failed attempts and a bit of inspiration, I eventually managed to pull together a Hercules Atlas-style Titan, which stands at almost 100 blocks in height. Personally, I think this is a much better option rather than just building another tower. At least the project now has something unique that really makes the city of Atlantis stand out. And if that wasn't enough, to finish off this mega project, we're going to be adding some final extras, including schools of fish and poisonous jellyfish. With that said and done, I now proudly present to you my version of a fantasy underwater lost city of Atlantis.
Show yourself. My apprentice returns. It is good to see you again, Khadgar. Medivh? How? My spirit is bound to this tower. Yes, of course. Medivh, there is so much I need. You look terrible, old friend. Why have you come here? I come seeking the knowledge you kept here. Anything that can help me stand against them. If not a guardian, if not you, then who can stop the approaching storm? If you cannot embrace your fate, then all you have accomplished, all you have sacrificed, will have been for nothing.
Well guys, as always, this world will be exclusively available on www.jerocraft.net.
And just a small bit of self-promotion on his part. Anyway, that is all for today's video. I'm sorry that, well, not really. Nothing to apologize to, so why am I apologizing? Sorry, I tend to have those thoughts. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you make it here, down to the exit video, the end of the video, then thank you. So, yeah. I wish you all have a very good day, and if my videos help make your days brighter, then leave a thumbs up down below, and also hit that like button down below, and smash that subscribe button, and hit that little bell icon down below to become a part of the Phoenix Squad. Anyway, I'm thinking about starting a new thing, but not sure how to implement it just yet. Sorry, just trying to get rid of that ad. Anyway, that's all for today's video, everybody. And tune in next time, and I will see you all later. Bye!